So, okay. Dave,
thank you, Anne.
Good evening and welcome to Reach Out and Touch Space.
This is going to cause some confusion, Pete, because you said you're going to probe Dave. I'm looking very nervous.
No.
Yeah. As long as it's the guest Dave and not me, Dave. You know.
No, it's guest Dave. That's
Dave. Okay then.
Yeah. So Dave, how are you doing? It's been a long time since we've seen each other.
It has been. I think it was it the IAS 2 years ago that we last spoke?
I think it probably was, yeah, because you were planning to be at Solarsphere this year, obviously, and of course, Solarsphere not happening again this year, but we will be. It is happening next year, so you know you can plan in for next year. Don't worry about that. That's no problem at all. So we hope to see you there. But what we're going to do first, we're going to sort of find out a little bit about yourself. How did you start out with an interest in astronomy? Was it something that came to you late in life, or is it just the optics you're interested in, or you're interested in the subject as a whole?
No, it's always been there. I used to live on the Nottinghamshire-Leicestershire border, so we had quite good skies when I was sort of 7 and 8.
Yeah.
And I used to like looking at the sky from the village that we lived in. And yeah, it's always been with me since then. I wanted to be an astronaut and an astronomer, of course, as I was growing up, but didn't have the head for the mathematics, so I ended up doing chemistry at John Moores University.
I mean, you say you haven't. I mean, the engineering you do is so precise, and you say you haven't got the mathematics. Come on,
I'm not the engineer.
So nPae, when did you start this company, or when did this company? When was this company formed?
So it started 5 years ago, and we've sort of gradually been notching it up since then.
Mm-hmm.
Our social media guy has got a waiting list to be friends with him now. He's hit his 5,000 on Facebook, so we've got about 2,500 followers, and we've built a small retailer network in the obvious countries that you can reach out to from the UK, and yeah, it's incrementally incrementing.
Yeah, so you're. I mean, most of your product, well, nearly all your products are highly recommended, and with
thank you very much.
People such as Damien. Well, if you've got Damien Peach endorsing your products, it can't get any better, can it? Really?
Well, thanks very well. Well, you took the words right out of my mouth.
You know, so if Damien's promoting your products, we can't. They are excellent. They are very high-end pieces of equipment. So. Obviously we've got listeners all around the world, and they're probably not aware of what you actually do. Can you run through some of the products you do and what they are for the listeners?
Sure. So we've got 3 products at the moment in our product lineup. The entry-level product is the Thea inline magnetic filter holder, which fixes your filters magnetically in your imaging train. So as your telescope moves, the filter doesn't, because it's magnetically retained. Then the second product we have is the Thea 90 star diagonal, which is a very high-end 1/10 wave diagonal. It has a built-in filter changer at the front, and you can actually collimate the mirror from the rear, so you can just get that final tweak of collimation. And then our flagship product is the 6-position rotating eyepiece turret, which we are, I believe, the only manufacturer in the world who produces a 6-position rotating eyepiece turret. It's very high-end machining, and again comes with a 1/10 wave mirror.
Excellent products, excellent products. Of course, you do a lot of you do attend a lot of events, and you don't just attend events here in the UK. You do travel around a little bit. I noticed you should have been, and obviously I don't think that happened. Is the New York Astrofest?
Yeah, so the Northeast Astro Forum in New York, which is pretty much the largest sort of gathering of astro manufacturers in the world that I know of. And yeah, unfortunately, because of COVID, got cancelled this year. So we'll be back next year. They ran some successful online events where they had like a 3-hour streaming program with different talks, which was interesting, and we managed to participate in that. But of course, everyone's just been on the back foot, basically, in sort of like holding position, waiting for everything to start up again.
Yeah, I mean, how's the pandemic wise, has it affected your business greatly?
Yeah, I mean, it completely fell off a cliff at the beginning of 2020. And then it sort of crept back a bit towards the end, spiked at the beginning of 2021, but we're sort of nowhere near back to the figures that we were looking at in 2019. So yeah, big setback.
Yeah, when you come to places like Solstice, will you be bringing equipment that you can demonstrate to people? Will you bring in telescopes and your equipment connected to the end so people can observe using your equipment?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's really from a business development point of view, which is what I spearhead at nPae. It is really all about demonstrating to people what we've got, simply because there's a lot of star diagonals out there at the end of the day. Why would you want to buy an nPae one?
Yeah,
I can give you that answer, of course. But I've got to demonstrate that to people.
I mean, that's what I say. Well, I mean, it'll be great if we could actually, handle these products, look at these products. And of course, there are active observational astronomers and photographic astronomers in the panel. There's Simon and Roger there and Dave, who are actively out there. Of course, with me being a remote telescope person, it's a little bit difficult. So let's hope you get some of your stuff stuck on some remote telescopes.
It could happen.
It could happen because you do run a competition, a photographic competition alongside the John Moores University Liverpool telescope, don't you?
We do. So we do a Northern Hemisphere and a Southern Hemisphere stage each year. And then we have a public vote for the nPae World Champion astrophotographer. So yeah, that's good fun. I mean, we have some excellent entries. I mean, there's some amazing astrophotography going on around the world.
There is.
It's quite incredible, to be honest. Mind-blowing stuff going on.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to play another track, and then when we come back, we'll let some of the panel ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
That'll be fantastic. Thank you.
So unfortunately, you don't get to hear the track, but I do, and the radio listeners do. So we're going to carry on, and we're going to carry on with Dare and Sunrise. To the chat now, and going to throw Dave to the panel.
Yikes! It's like in Friends of the Lions.
Throw Dave to Dave. I'll catch him. There we go. We caught him. Well, hi, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Welcome to the panel. Our panel is a mixture of amateur astronomers. We have some professional astronomers, of course. We got our Julian there, excellent on cakes and astrophysics as well. We've got our astro imagers. We've got Rachel, Roger. We got our theorists. Have we got our visual observers as well? And I think, Simon, you're pretty much a visual observer. Steve, what would you say you class as? Are you visual or photographic?
I'm just a general hanger-on, but I think I'm more visual. I'm more of a desktop astronomer, actually, kind of finding out about things and trying to translate them into presentations.
Yeah, so we do cover quite a broad spectrum, I think.
And of course, we've got our representative from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, which is Kareem there.
We've got Kareem as well, yes. Yeah. What about you, Kareem? Are you visual? Are you photographic? Or I say photographic, that's an old-fashioned word now, isn't it? An old term. Are you an astro imager, I should say?
Trying to learn how, but I'd say I'm more educator-based, just trying to figure out how to explain it and share it.
Yeah.
Whatever the best ways are.
We're just talking about the changes in the technology, I suppose, and the quality in engineering over the decades. I'm saying it with Dave. I remember the days when the Dobsonian first came in, and it was just like, well, it looks like a cannon. It moves up and down. It's a tube in a rocket box. And it looks so simple. And I can't believe that it was never invented back in the 60s. It came about in the late 70s, I think, John Dobson. And it's become a thing now. And you can buy them in, just amazing. I've seen 30-inch Dobsonians. There's bigger telescopes out there, of course. For us, back in the day, it would be a 6-inch, but short focal length. You're too low down. The 8-inch, the 10-inch apertures, even better. So simple in its design, but so popular. It revolutionized astronomy. And the other object, the other item I was thinking of was the Crayford Focuser. Such a beautiful piece of engineering, but so simple. Yet it revolutionized the focusing of your eyepieces to the point where you could just get that focus just crisp, and it stayed where it was. And nowadays we've got all these electronic focuses, auto guiders. If you haven't got your computer connected to your telescope, can you move it? Can you focus it? Can you see anything through the eyepiece? And it's just so different now than back in the 70s with all those. I'd compare it to the analog digital. So the work that you produce, it's like looking at Rolls Royce. I remember lifting the bonnet. I lifted a bonnet back in the 70s. Lifted up a bonnet of a Rolls Royce. And it was just amazing. It reminded me of one of those cars that, when you're a kid, you get the dinky toys and matchbox. And when you lifted the toy bonnet up, it was just a mold, wasn't it? Aluminium mold. And that is the immaculate condition of those top end vehicles. And engineering's like that now. So your products on your website just look amazing. They're just beautiful. I can't wait for you to come to Solar Sphere so we can try them out.
I'll definitely be there next time for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to pass you on to the panel. Who shall I throw you to now? Who's ready to catch? Anyone want to catch Dave? Kareem?
Give me first.
Let's throw over to Canada.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, Kareem.
I'm frustrated. I missed you at NEAF because 2020 was supposed to be my first NEAF. And I got time off of work. I had everything set up, and then COVID hit, and that was it.
Yep.
How do you find the NEAF experience from your perspective as a business person going in, trying to actually use this to maybe launch new products or to actually engage a whole new set of astronomers?
So NEAF is very good because it's very widely known, both in the United States and abroad. And obviously in the New York location, New York's a very easy city to get to from pretty much anywhere. So you get a lot of international astronomers going in NEAF, and it's a good show to reach the maximum number of people and sort of have the biggest impact. But it's not obviously the only game in town by a long way. And certainly as I've discovered sort of doing the business development for nPae, the world astronomy scene is very siloed by country. So there's a huge amount of stuff going on in France, but we never learn about it in the UK because we have almost nothing to do with French astronomers. There's masses of associations in France and clubs, and they've got some of their own brands and that sort of stuff, but they don't move out of France, if you see what I mean. And a similar thing in Japan. You've got the Matsuyama Eyepiece range in Japan, which is hardly known outside of Japan, but they're right up there with the televiews. So it's interesting that it is very siloed. There's a big scene in Brazil and a big scene in Argentina, but again, we never hear about it, which is a shame, really. And one of the things I've been trying to do is sort of like link together all the common threads of the international astro scene.
Well, it's one of the things that I think COVID is actually helping with. Pete and I were both on the Global Star Party together with somebody from Buenos Aires, somebody from the US, a bunch of us from Canada, and another person from Saudi Arabia. We have somebody from Nepal on at most of those Global Star Parties. And here, when Pete reads out the emails he gets, there's, Antarctica South Station, there's somebody coming over from India. It really, the global reach is starting to break through those barriers just a little bit. So it's nice to hear that you're trying to dent those as well from the perspective of somebody who actually supplies products.
Yeah, I like to reach out to people and tell them about the astrophotography competition. And I found an astronomy club in Madagascar. So I got on Google Translate and sent them a nice email in, I think it's Malaga, the language down there. They didn't reply as yet, but who knows? You can find them on Facebook as well.
Well, I know whenever I try to translate stuff to French with Google Translate, my family tells me how wrong I am with everything I wrote.
Oh dear. But it is like you saying, the global reach is fantastic now. Some of the listeners we get, we've got this group of astronomers in the desert in Iran who often email us just to tell us how dark it is there. I think they're just rubbing it in just a little. But I think it was about 2 weeks ago. I did a talk to a school in Japan. Now, who can imagine doing a talk to a school in Japan before all this kind of, the COVID hit and we had to go online? It has opened up the doors a lot. And like I say, hopefully it's opened up the doors for you for trading as well, to get your point across.
Hopefully astronomy will be one of the wins that comes out of COVID. We certainly need to win somewhere coming out of COVID, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Pete, Mary is or was chatting to New Zealand. She was doing a talk for those.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit of a time difference, on the other side of the world as well.
Hi, Dave. Just a quick thing here.
Yeah.
This may be an impossible question to answer, actually, but since I first started in astrophotography 10 years or more, the results I see now are just dazzling. But do you have a feel for how many astronomers and astrophotographers are in a band of beginners? How many are in intermediate level, and how many are sort of top end and using the sort of equipment that you produce? Is there any feel for that at all?
There sort of is, but it will be a fairly sizable guesstimate. I think sort of the Pareto principle, the 80-20, is going to apply. I would imagine 80% of people are using sort of, average sort of run-of-the-mill gear that's getting them good results. And then there's going to be 20% who are going to be, extremely focused, very dedicated, who want to put a lot of money into their hobby, who will be where we will be looking.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Daz? Daz is out, mic on.
Daz is muted.
Daz is muted.
He can't unmute himself.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
No, I was just going through through Dave's website and looking at the products and things like that. I'm fascinated with the rotating eyepiece holder that you've got on there. That's something I haven't seen.
Can he have one
before.
for free?
Try out.
Yeah, can I test one, please? No, I was just fascinated with that. So, and I just look. Well, I haven't had a chance to have a proper look, Dave. So I think if you pass on to somebody else, I'll come back to you with a question.
You have a little look at the lovely eyepiece holders there. Whatever. I believe, Dave, isn't it the one that holds the most eyepieces? Is there sort of like an unofficial record?
We're not the first person to make a 6-position eyepiece turret. There was an American manufacturer called Van Slyke that did a range of them from the late 80s to the mid 2000s. And I don't think anyone has produced an 8-position eyepiece turret.
That's a lot.
You would need a monster-sized telescope to put that on. I mean, the 6th position, when it's got 6 large eyepieces in it, it pushes, it's pushing 5 kilograms plus when it's fully loaded. So you do need a pretty sizable back end to put it on.
This is it, isn't it? A bit of a counterweight going on.
Yeah.
I see lots of amateur astronomers using what we call the 2-inch eyepieces, 50 millimeter diameter barrel. Now they weigh a heck. You balance your telescope and you put one of those eyepieces in. That totally throws your balance out. Exactly. Yeah. So. I love the view through one of those. It's like looking through the porthole of a spaceship. It really is excellent. But I just think on some telescopes, they're not really practical. You've got to have the right type of telescope to utilize those, I think. But it's not something that I don't think we're ever going to see them in a 8-barrel turret somehow. It'd be a bit of a monster, wouldn't it? Yeah.
That would be
I guess suppose you could put a camera into one of the eyepiece pieces there to do, then you can sort of do some photographic observation, just rotating it round quickly to that position. Wouldn't you be able to do that?
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
You wouldn't do that, Roger, because you love the faff of half an hour of resetting up, rejigging, moving the wires around. You'd lose the faff if you did that.
Mess your flat fields up as well. You got to take into account. Be my luck, I'll pull a cable out halfway through as well, and That would drive me
I guess it would
nuts.
be laterally reversed, but that's easy enough to alter, isn't it? If you're using that.
Yeah. I should point out, Dave, Simon is based down at Bath Astronomers, and
wow.
he's very lucky to be in Bath House, and he gets to stand in that room or sit in the room where
Very
William Herschel
nice.
once was with and Caroline, of course, as well. We should always remember
Wow.
Caroline, a great astronomer in her own. So a bit of history there. I mean, from one end, the old telescope mirror making right to the modern stuff that you're doing, But is there something that you'd like to try out, Simon? Perhaps a modern system combined with the old telescopes there?
I think the curator of the museum would have an absolute fit if I tried to put
I did say, would you like to? I didn't say you could.
On an 18th century telescope.
Yeah, but imagine testing the telescope optics with a modern day eyepiece.
But I think to do that, it'd be a great photographic opportunity for advertisement, that we can even supply equipment fitted onto Herschel's telescope.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Well, we're doing that Victorian telescope renovation project, and we're not using the original eyepieces. The quality is just nowhere near modern lenses, and we're using it for outreach. So it'd be lovely to have it fully restored, etc., and use their eyepieces. But things like the field of view is so small, and you have to get just right. That expertise that you get of just finding the center of a lens, that everyone knows if they've been doing a lot of astronomy, they just don't even need to think about it. In outreach, people just can't see through them. So we use modern lenses. So old objective, but all the eyepieces are new.
Yeah. So those early eyepieces, they were like pinholes, weren't they? The RAS eyepieces, weren't they? The old thread on them. But and the optics were good. I mean, we had one of the observatory, Ron, if you remember, the Arthur Fox telescope. A beautiful refracting telescope. And I remember observing Saturn through that, with a modern eyepiece back in the 70s, of course. And the image of Saturn was beautiful. Saturn was high up, of course, in them days. It was up in Gemini.
I remember the 5-inch Cook. We had some old eyepieces. I think they were Ramsden's.
Yeah, I think we still got them. Yeah.
And they were quite tricky to use.
Yeah. But it's like looking at a cotton reel, but with a 2mm hole, and that was a high power. It's just ridiculous when you think, how the hell did they see anything?
They had good eyesight anyway.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Certainly the central portion of their eye. But obviously they produced the goods. We always say they had darker skies, and maybe that was their advantage. But imagine having a modern eyepiece back in the day with those beautiful dark skies as well. What else would they have seen? Yeah. I was listening to the Herschel chat that we had on the other night, Simon, and the observations that he made. It's just amazing, isn't it, really? And that beast of a telescope, you had to crank it up in altitude and move around in azimuth, and then point it at the zenith. That is just unbelievable. But he catalogued a heck of a lot of stuff. Okay, so Ron, any thoughts on modern equipment or the comparisons of modern day engineering with the old stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the big change, you've already said, the big change that's happened since the 70s when you and I started out is the move away from photographic emulsions and all the faffing that involved with I mean, if you were serious, I mean, I did black and white and I didn't do anything more exciting than just develop my own film. But, you and I both know people who did gas hypersensitization.
Crazy way you think about it now.
Let's set up a chemical experiment with the potential of blowing things up in the kitchen. Yes.
That's right.
The move to digital obviously makes it so much more accessible. And I think that's the huge difference. It's significantly democratized access, although it does come at a price tag because, the kit inevitably isn't cheap, but there again, photography and astronomy never has been. Anything specialist never is. The thing that I'm interested in, because I've been umming and ahhing about where to spend my money, is filters, because there are two routes I could take. I've been, like all of us, I've struggled this last year with the weather. So one thing that strikes me, well, if I went for some narrowband filters, at least if the moon's out, I can stick a hydrogen alpha filter on and do some narrowband imaging and actually make use of some time. Or the other one is to go for some sort of tri or quad band filter and use that to try and get past the moon and its interference.
Yeah, that's one of the things I did like on the website, Dave, is the magnetic filter holder.
Yeah.
That's what caught my eye.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's nice, strong magnets, but not that strong where you can't just pull them out when you want to.
Yeah, it's got a nice clunk when you pull it in and out.
Yeah, and of course, if the telescope rotates to a certain position, they're not going to fall out either. That, you know, that's the thing you need, isn't it? You filter on the floor. But yeah, it's just so quick, isn't it? You know, the torrent, or you know, the magnetic filter holder. And you just like one out, one in. I love the idea of that. And again, why didn't they think that back in the 70s? I bet there's some amateur out there thought, yeah, I can do that. But it's just getting the engineering just right, I think. Maybe
we
that
didn't
was the
have the filters then, though, did we? Really?
Of course, no, we didn't have the filters. Yeah.
I mean, the earliest filters were the sodium rejection filter.
I'm going to say the word, and I might say it incorrectly, and I do apologise. Neodymium, neodymium, and they weren't cheap either. But they killed the sodium lights. You know, straight away you got a darker sky. That was the light pollution of the day. The orange street lights, sodium, and then they changed them to high pressure sodium, of course, which made it even worse.
Which were broadband, which was a problem.
Yeah. But, okay, Kath, any questions? Any thoughts?
Yeah. Hi, Dave. I'm just quite interested in when you're not working, do you have your own telescopes? What kind of things do you like to observe? Is there something particular that's always your go-to? I'm
a big fan of the moon.
Fabulous! Me too. Oh, yes.
I love the moon. I can just sit and stare at it all night. It's just great. So in terms of my own equipment, I'm quite lucky. I've got a big pair of 6-inch Vixen binos. I've got a 12-inch Meade LX200, which is sadly currently in storage. It's going to come out hopefully in the next year or so. It's in my mum's storage locker in her apartment in Spain. So
you need to get hold of that soon.
Yeah, though I might need a bit of help with that. So I know that the bigger scopes can be a little bit more tricky. And then I've got a baby ETX 90, which was my first telescope, which is still going. And then I've got a Matt Sukoff Skywatcher 180.
Fabulous. That's quite a collection.
So yeah, I'm lucky in that respect, to be honest. I managed to get together some nice bits of kit.
Oh, fantastic. I've got very basic equipment compared to that. I have a collection of Dobsonians, going from very small tabletop mounted ones to I've now got a 10-inch one courtesy of Pete and
oh wow,
and Jonathan at North Wales Astro. They've lent that one to me. So but I tend to do, but the moon is what anybody on the panel will know, the moon is about the only thing that I image. I do take DSLR photos of the sky as well. I'm learning that, but I was pleased to hear you say the moon, because people do, but not so many people do. And I'm like, the moon is just there. It's just beautiful. You don't even need equipment to observe it.
Pete hates the moon.
Pardon?
Pete hates the moon.
Oh.
Pardon? Did somebody mention my name?
You hate the moon,
Pete. I hope you don't hate the moon, Pete.
No, it's fine. But I mean, I've been doing astronomy for 50 years now, and it's never changed.
Those galaxies haven't changed either.
No,
51 still looks the same. It still hasn't spun away or joined.
I don't know about that.
I'm only joking. Only jesting.
I did want to mention Kath and Dave, of course. The latest issue of Astronomy Now I think I'm allowed to advertise Astronomy Now. Great magazine.
Well,
So is the Sky at Night magazine as well.
Well, Beatles Astronomy Now is a sponsor. I think
That's
you
right.
should announce them.
Well, I'm just being fair. Keep the balance same. Great article about the Bay of Rainbows, Sinus Iridium, and in particular, an observation to make that not many people actually catch this, and it's called the Moon Maiden, and I think it was Cassini who first brought attention to it. At certain times of the lunation, when the sun's just at the right angle, at the Bay of Rainbows, at the peak of it, it looks like the face of a lady with her hair blown in the wind. You got to get it the right. It's like the lunar X and the lunar,
and the lunar V, yes,
V and Y and G and all those other letters.
Only X and V.
That's it. Well, if you look at, you can join the dots and make any letter you like.
Well, you could, to be fair, Dave.
But it's a cracker observation to go for, and if you can image that as well. I've had to go a couple of times, never get it quite right, and I've only ever seen it once by one of our members. Ron, if you remember Murad, I think it was an 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain that he had, Celestron, back in the day, and he produced this beautiful image, and it just looks stunning. For those who remember the old Florent coins with the Queen's profile, and her hair was up in a bun, but basically you can imagine that, and the hair's blown in the wind. Very distinct when you get that light just right. But there's a small drawing of the object by Cassini. So have a look for that and try and find out when that's observable.
Yeah, I've caught the Bay of Rainbows, but not that. I've never caught that.
The Moon Maiden,
Not to my knowledge. Perhaps I better trawl through my thousands of photos just in case.
I'll say it's getting that lunation just right, libration and so on. Okay, anything else, Kath?
No, that was it.
You're like me. You love the moon. I love the moon.
I do.
Simon loves the moon.
And I'm not, as anybody here will know, I'm not going to pretend I'm a technical. I aspire to be a technical astrophotographer one day, but at the moment I'm just quite basic while I get all my confidence with what I use now. And but I'll get there one day.
I think one thing that would probably improve your observing experience would be, I don't know whether it's possible to buy these, maybe imagine having 6 or more eyepieces all in one turret, and you could just click. Yeah,
it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
Can you imagine having one of those?
Well, Pete, what did I have the other day from you, Pete? He's not listening.
Well, I'm trying to produce a show here.
I've got a Zoom. I haven't used it yet, but I've got, because I haven't had clear skies, but I've got a Zoom eyepiece now. Oh, I'm moving on up. I am.
Oh, teacher's pet.
Nice barder one it is. Nice barder one.
Excellent.
Yes, Pete teaches me well, bless him.
He does. He's a good teacher. Okay, then let's go over to Julian. Julian, you're a lad from Nottingham, as is our Dave. And you know each other, do you, or have you your paths crossed?
Way back in, when was it?
It was
the National Astronomy meeting we met.
In Nottingham, that was it, yes. That was 4 years ago now.
Yeah. Gosh, the nightmares from that are just about subsiding now. That was hell to organise.
That was good fun.
Yeah, well, maybe for you.
Not for the organisers. They're tough.
500 astronomers to organise, I'm just wondering what you got planned in the pipeline that you can talk about, if anything, or is it all too secret?
Well, no, it's not too secret. I mean, the engineer in mind behind nPae, which I am not. I'm not the technical guy in nPae. Nicholas is our engineer. He's an enormously talented guy coming from the field of satellite design, and we've got some interesting stuff in the pipeline. So one of them is a 3-axis mount, which we think will solve a few issues that people have, and crucially will allow people with boats to mount telescopes on their boats.
So can you explain that a bit more? What is a 3-axis mount?
So this is
sounds intriguing.
This is the way that I understand it. So your normal mount, it has your left and right and your up and down.
Yeah.
On 2 axes, but you don't have the 3rd axis unless you have like an equatorial wedge or something like that, which you would manually fix in place.
Okay. Yeah.
So a 3-axis mount puts in that third axis, so it's constantly available. So,
So
for
you can sort of
example,
compensate for up and down and
exactly. So if it's on the bow of a ship, the bow of a ship is going up and down, it's going left and right, and it's going like this as well.
wow.
You would be able to compensate for that movement with a 3-axis mount. Some of the other things you'd be able to do is if you're tracking a planet across the sky, you're going in an equatorial direction, and then you want to start looking at polar satellites. With the current configuration of the mount on 2-axis, you're not able to do that. You'd have to reconfigure the mount and set it all up again, in which case the observing opportunity may be lost. Whereas with a 3-axis mount, you'd be able to slew straight into the new direction that you wanted to track in.
Got you. Yeah. Wow, that sounds
Yeah,
sounds like a lot of engineering.
Yeah, my head was just meandering there. I was thinking about all these cruise ships that go off to observe the total eclipse of the sun in the the middle of the oceans, and obviously it's waving about up and down, left and right, and all this. And one of the biggest problems was trying to find an instrument or a camera setup where you can actually keep the sun basically in the field of view. Patrick Moore had some amazing things on there was a box that was filled with sealed but filled with oil, so that the whole platform always stayed upright. But I don't think I had much success on board the ship. But
wow.
Some great.
So I had enough trouble trying to photograph Aurora a couple of years ago on a ship for the same reason, because an exposure of 2 or 3 seconds, and of course the ship moves.
It's moved.
The test of everyone's patience, I should imagine. Okay, Daz?
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. Actually, that mount that could solve a lot of problems. Actually, basically, I'm going to come away from astronomy and ask you, what sort of music do you like to listen to, and do you listen to music when you're actually observing?
So sadly, I'm more of a desk astronomer than a practical astronomer, which is something that I kind of regret. In my childhood, when I first got into astronomy, I was actively observing, and now not so much. And though hopefully that can be resurrected once the travel restrictions get lifted, and I can brush the dust off my 12-inch scattergreen that's in storage at my mum's. But music, what do I listen to? Well, okay, you'll laugh at this, because I have each day I pick 3 CDs from my eclectic 1990s CD collection to listen to each day. And so on my desk right now, I'll show you what I've got. You'll laugh at this. I've got Billy Ocean's Greatest Hits. Pretty good CD, that. Followed by the classic Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat. And George Michael's Listen Without Prejudice.
Good album.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good album.
So you haven't got any Nolans or Rick Astley, I notice.
Oh, no.
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 So,
Spice Girls.
No.
Spice Girls, yeah.
Being sort of a teenager. I was born in '74, December '74. So I was a teenager in sort of like the late 80s. So I'm into sort of like the early Madonna and Kylie Minogue and Guns N' Roses and those sort of people who were big.
Look at Peter shaking
shaking
his head in
despair. Traumatizing Pete like I do.
I can feel the waves of trauma from here.
I know, it's just washing all the way
I'm
across
breaking
the
out in a
country.
sweat here. It's for getting a fever now.
It's the airwaves of trauma.
Well, whatever rocks your boat, that's what I say.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I'd say
company with me.
I'd say that I like pretty much all types of music, to be fair.
It's just what you happen to grab on in the morning that you
exactly.
Okay,
I mean, I've got all sorts of stuff in my CD collection, right the way through to 1920s music, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well,
Peter remembers all that stuff back in the days of
he
Al
wrote
Jolson
and he wrote it, played on it.
So sort of like your war tunes and that sort of thing. My old man to follow the band.
Now you're talking, Peter. Now look at Peter smiling there, his foot's tapping away.
So yeah,
I got that washing,
I'll listen to most stuff.
Okay, then that's fair.
I lived in Brazil for a year and a half, and I went to the Brazilian Oktoberfest in South Brazil, and they have this. It's like German music with the brass band, but it's in Portuguese because it's Brazilian. So it's like this weird combo German Brazilian hybrid music thing. And
Fusion.
Fusion, that's the word I was looking for. And it's really good. It works, believe it or not.
Pete, I want to hear it.
Simon's favourite track at the moment. What's it called, Simon?
It's not the Ding Dong, is it?
It could be.
No, I've got a track lined up for Dave, much against my better judgment. But we'll go to another track, and then we'll come back to the panel.
Okay, Pete.
This track, being as Dave's made it more meaty, let's say. But we're going to go back over to the chat. Now Dave has completely changed the whole format of the show with Madonna, and we'll never forgive him for it. Never. But, still go out and buy his products, even though he likes Madonna and stuff like that. Still go out and buy his products.
Yeah, there's always therapy. There's always therapy.
The therapy that his products will give you will be amazing. So that's the aim of the game.
I wonder if this is going to be a post-birthday thing where now every single show there will be one song where everybody's like, "What's Pete thinking?"
What's Pete doing? He's cracking up. He's gone crazy.
He's not well. He needs help. I will redeem myself shortly, I have to say.
I don't know how you can redeem yourself wearing a T-shirt with, I can only describe as ice cream cones on your chest. That's Madonna as far as I can tell.
In Search of Space Hawkwind.
Okay, it still looks a bit like Madonna.
Before Dave was even born. 1972. No, 1971.
I am a bit of a Ziggy Sputnik fan, actually.
Oh, Ziggy Sputnik.
It's getting worse. Honestly, it's getting
Ziggy Sputnik, you're an amazing band.
Ziggy Sputnik.
Dave, stop, Dave.
Dave, get out as you can, Dave. Get out.
Were they the ones?
Keep going.
These products, Peter, precision optics.
Were they the ones that spun you around like a whatever? I'll spin you around like was that?
No, that was Dave Burns, Dead or Alive.
Yeah, Dead or Alive. Zig Sputnik. They got to be as bad.
Yeah, they were blonde hair and weird. No. As I say, it's
Dave's a guest. We'll be kind to him.
Gotta be polite.
Be polite. Anyway, Dave, how can people get in touch with you? How can they find out what products you've got? Can you give some information out there, please?
It's all on our website, which is www.npae.net. And you can also find us on Facebook, or if you just go to Google and put in nPae, no one else called themselves that, so we're top of the search. Where do you look us up?
Yeah, so that's excellent. So get out there, buy the products, or if you want to see them, come to Solarsphere next year and you'll be able to see these products. Dave, we're going to go over to now, we have a little bit of astronomical news from some of our panel members, but you can stick around if you like and join in.
I will. Thank you very much. I'll join in. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much for having me as a guest. I very much appreciate it.
Dave, you're welcome back on the panel anytime. You've got the details. Just come in whenever you feel like it. And put your oar in and say your bit and advertise your products. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
Thank you so much.
I was saying to them, because they said, "Oh, does Dave know about Astro Radio?" I said, "Dave was actually the first sponsor we ever had on Astro Radio." So
yeah. Oh wow. Oh cool.
He knows all about Astro Radio. Just to say, while that track was playing, I was actually downloading and processing the latest Dust Devil image from Mars from the raw data, which I'll be putting up a little bit later. I'm doing this for the project to help Kareem in the project we're doing. Kareem, this will include this data as well, Dust Devil data, not the Dust Devil I bought from Woolworths, the Dust Devil on Mars. We all know
amazing images of it out there. That you could see it from the side.
Yeah. This one's just right. It's kind of in a pit. Just in front of a rock outcrop, and you can see the Dust Devil.
You can see it changing in size too, which is fantastic.
It's amazing. The quality of this data that's coming back. It's always been said, hasn't it? You get the quality of this data coming back from Mars, yet you can't get a clear picture on a camera surveillance video outside of a bank. You know, we want to picture this person, this hazy face, and they say, sorry, it's not very good yet. This data are coming back from Mars where we can actually, the resolution, we can see grains of sand in the Martian surface. It's unbelievable. But anyway, we're going to go over to the astronomical news. That's just a little bit of astronomical news. There is more raw data coming back from Perseverance as I speak. We're going to go over to, who wants to do the first bit of news? Roger?
Okay, this is some SpaceX news. The sixth section of the launch tower has now rolled out, ready for assembling onto the rest of the items. I think there's only going to be one more section to go on top of that, and then it'll be almost ready for completion. The hoist for the launch tower has now been installed, so once that's all getting together, we'll be able to start lifting the booster rockets and everything onto the tower, ready for a launch. SN60 might come out and it might be doing a hypersonic test. They're planning on launching it, if they do, and it could go over Mach 7, which will give it some idea of how the system will be working with the Raptor engines. And NASA has put a word out to people on planet Earth to name the mannequin for the Artemis mission. They're going to send a mannequin out, and they want that mannequin to be named, and it's been put out to people to submit a name. So that
Dave is the obvious choice.
I was going to go for Pete.
Yeah.
So that should be quite interesting.
Roger the pirate.
Jazz.
Oh.
Well, I was just thinking, Roger, do you know why they're sending a mannequin?
I don't know. Cheaper than an astronaut.
Yeah, well, I suppose, yeah. It's not even a crash test dummy, is it?
No, I don't know
They
why
do
that
have
is.
they do have accelerometers in them. So for the launch, they effectively do have the ability to test what individual parts of the human body are experiencing within the dummies. So they are there for a purpose. To try and assess what the human gets feel.
I was just wondering whether it was a mannequin from Marks and Spencer's or something, you know, where like that.
Well, I guess it's not the one who leapt out from Elon Musk's Tesla when it came back round on its last orbit, so they can jump ship onto this one.
Yeah, with Starman.
Change of scenery.
Yeah, possibly. But mind you, that Tesla must be suffering a little bit now. Exposure to all that radiation and all the micrometeors. So it's probably looking a bit scratched, if nothing else. So
bit pitted.
Yeah, a bit.
There was some stuff in the news at the weekend, Roger, about the fact that SpaceX are not very popular with the local authorities over the amount of closures of local roads and beaches, and that they might be taking legal action against them.
Oh, okay, then we'll.
But that's more politics than anything. Yeah. Just purely because the amount of people they actually now employ there, the boost they've got in that area, that was just a small sleepy little village. And the beaches were used, but not that much. And they've brought in thousands of staff, all of whom need housing, food, all of that. So the commercial side benefits the area is getting. It's absolutely massively outweighs any of the negative sides. And some people aren't selling their properties because they're in a danger zone. And that's fair. You may have lived there for a long time, but hey, progress does move on. And
well, they were all offered packages to move away
more than their properties were worth.
Exactly, a lot more, because Elon's not short of a bob or two, but they were all offered packages to leave their properties and all that, and to be resettled in other places and that. And as Simon said, it's basically going to be a space city at the end of the day, because once it gets up and running, they're going to be firing off rockets left, right, and centre. There's going to be production on the site. There's going to be thousands and thousands of people there. So it's people moaning just for the sake of it, really. They're trying to get compensation and things like that. So
can I just put a caveat there? Just in case, if anyone wants to do HS4 through Bath, I'm against it. I'm not moving. Doesn't matter how much money you give me.
You won't have no choices. Go
How
straight
much
through
money
the
is
museum.
not enough.
Straight through the museum it's going. Yeah, salt heritage. So yeah.
HS2 comes within a mile of me, or the final phase if it happens.
Okay, then you'll be out protesting then, Steve. Yeah.
As long as it misses my property, I'll be all right with it.
Okay, you'll be living in a tunnel.
What else we got going on? Sorry, Simon, after you.
Roger, that tower they're building, SpaceX, that's the catching tower, isn't it? It's not only
That
launching,
is,
but
yes.
the catching. Yeah.
Yes, they're getting that all up together. They just got to put one more section on top of the one they're putting on, and then the grab arms will be going on. Should be interesting.
It'll be interesting watching that catch.
Is the crane that's going to be lifting the sections onto each other, is it actually going to be mounted on the... No, I shouldn't think so. Actually, that's a stupid question, really, because you don't want that swinging around when you take it off. But yeah, because I know they built a giant crane that is specifically for loading up the spacecraft, the starships, onto the top of the booster section. So yeah, I'll retract that question, Millard.
Okay, retract that crane quickly.
It's really fun that you watch certain spacecraft, say the ESA spacecraft, and everyone's in suit, like full of body suits, they have breathing apparatus, as they're slowly getting one interface connected to another, and then 12 people check it. You look at what's happening with SpaceX, and it's a bloke with a hard hat and a mallet, whacking
the side of it. Yeah, I mean it's almost like the plumber in your house, isn't it? You got a builder's bum and everything. So yeah, it's not exactly a pretty sight. They are not exactly going out of their way to sell this thing as regards a technical endeavor, but it's working. So
I mean, if SN16 does go up, they haven't decided where it's going to be landing back on the launch pad, or it's going to go into the water. That hasn't been decided yet, but obviously Andy had decided on the price of what the Raptors are, whether it would be financially ruinous to ditch 32 Raptor engines into the water.
Yeah, it is a questionable, because even like I say, if they fire off they're talking about when they fire off the whole assembly again, they're both going to or they called it a soft landing on water. So there'll probably be a controlled descent and all that, and then it'll just go plump-a-dink.
Yep.
And that'll be it. But I don't know. It sort of like defeats the object of renewable, reusable technology. But we'll see.
No, you've got to test it. You've got to test it first, and you've got all this ground. So that they're spending months building their ground support equipment, and their launch equipment, and all of that. If that rocket doesn't come down just because one computer fails, they'll fully learn from it. But if it fails because one, and it takes out all that infrastructure when it comes down, then you've lost a year, because you've got to clear all that up, and then you've got to rebuild the whole thing. So for the first few flights, then it's much more sensible. They've wrapped the Raptor production has gone through the roof now. So the only real issue about landing at sea is the destruction to wildlife and things. And hey, check what China's doing with rocket bodies and the rest of the US. They're still chucking them all in the sea.
Oh, still chucking them in the sea, yeah.
We just don't get to see them chucking them in the sea. Because they're doing it in the remote parts of the ocean.
So there might be a date, possibly around about the middle of August, if this is going to go ahead, looking at what the programming for the rockets and on SN16 is going to be. So that it might be around about the middle of August if it does go ahead.
Okay then. Well, something to look out for. I mean, we did see the other day. Was it a Centaur take off the other day? They sent up another, and what they are is they're the old IBMs, the ballistic missiles. They've taken off the nuclear warheads, and they stick. We hope, and they stick satellites on top, secret satellites at that. So and they shooted them off, and they actually I watched the other one take off, and they had to pull right back on the camera, because once it fired up, it was gone. He was gone. It was fantastic to watch, and within seconds it was right up in the sky. So Yeah, so they're using up all of those, but they have got 4 or 5 different types of those still hanging around. So we'll be firing at them. But of course, so that they belong to the military, so they're using them to send up their hush hush things and all that. So because they did actually cut off showing the separation from the first stage to the second stage, because they said it's all hush hush. Okay, then fair enough. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun to watch, though. It did go off. It went off like a firework. It was gone. Yeah. Right, that's mine.
I was just thinking, we've got the 3 Chinese astronauts who've just
boarded Tianhe.
Joined up with they've just gone on boarded up with the Chinese space station. Harmony of the Heavens. How do we pronounce that? Tiani, is that correct?
Tiani. It's
Tiani,
the Chinese word for the Milky Way, for their ancient legend.
Yeah, so they're on board now.
3
And,
months of commissioning.
3 months,
making it home. And the other 2 big modules will be lofted next year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't actually see the launch of that one. I did miss it, but I listened to it on the on radio and things like that. And there was a countdown, but then there was a very big delay before anything happened. Was that because they were so far away, or was it a case of, it took the time for the sound to come across? I thought, has something gone wrong? Is it sort of like aborted or something like that? Then all of a sudden you just heard this thing take off. But yes, I presume the booster stage came down safely. We haven't heard anything.
I've not heard anything, have we?
It was a lower, because it's the lofting a smaller payload. So it wasn't quite such a big deal in terms of risk and doom.
Yeah, doom and
What's about when the astronauts return? I'm saying astronauts. Russia have cosmonauts. America and Europe, we have astronauts. What about China? Do we have a term?
Taikonauts.
Taikonauts, right. So when the Taikonauts return, is it going to be splashdown or a touchdown?
I don't know.
I've not heard anything at all.
I'd assume splashdown in like the South Pacific or something.
Yeah. So that's in itself would be interesting to see how they progress with that. Yeah.
Yeah, see how they get on with that. Yeah. That's
interesting. Something to watch out for, yeah.
I've got to thank everyone for helping out with the submission for Pete's ESA astronaut training.
Yes, he's going to go up. He doesn't know yet, but he's been selected.
So, yeah.
That's it.
So we had to lie slightly because the upper age was 50, wasn't it? But they noticed that.
They can fudge the...
Did you just use Dave's birthday?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just tell it's the 70s.
Well,
keep looking up, Pete, because that's where you're going, mate. Keep looking up.
I'll go, as long as it's not to the moon, because it's boring. But I'll go anywhere else.
There's one way.
I'm going to Mars.
You're going to Mars.
I'm going to Mars. Yeah, it looks a bit more hospitable than the moon. Not that much, but I have just posted the Mars Dust Devil image on my Facebook, and I've shared it across.
Oh, we did see it.
Shared it across to Reach Out and Touch Space. So if anybody wants to have a look, there is a little bit of a dust devil there winging its way across the Martian surface. And somebody just asked me, please explain, I'm a dumbass.
Okay.
Just got a message in from Mike, actually. He's out in California. He says, Dave, your products sound very, very interesting. He's had a look at your website and he said he will be getting in touch with you very soon.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
And so I
won't
hope
be disappointed. Excellent stuff.
Yes, I hope a lot of you will be doing that as well. Yeah. So any other space news? Have we got any space news from anybody else?
I've got some interesting notes down here, and I'm waiting for Daz to explain all. In my notes, it says, Daz, it's got zebrafish, it's got beehive, and it's got fluffy boulders. Come on, ABC, 1, 2, 3. What have you got here, mate?
We'll do it in reverse order.
Fluffy boulders.
The zebrafish. Now, what I'm going to tell you is how to set up an aquarium and have your own aquarium.
Right.
No. Basically, as we know that when human beings go into space and they're there for a very long time, it can be quite punishing on the human body. Basically, long endurance flights, they tend to, you get loss of body mass, of muscles, a redistribution of body fluids, usually to the head, which puts pressure on the eyes and vision problems. Higher levels of radiation in space can also damage the heart, cause arteries to narrow or harden, and eventually heart disease. It sounds fun, doesn't it? Who's ready? He's ready to go up.
I think I've suffered for most of it already.
So basically, it's how can humans survive the 480 million kilometer journey to the red planet without them dying or at least suffering permanent injury? And I did read this. Research has been going on for a few years now, and I did read a few years back about what they were actually planning to do. And it says extensive research in recent years has found that zebrafish share more than 70% of their genetic code with humans. That explains it. That's why we've got gills. Making it a key ally of scientists looking to model how best to fight an array of human diseases. A 2019 study published in the journal Nature, which took 10 years for scientists to complete, also identified sleep patterns in the small brains of the zebrafish. Has anyone fallen asleep yet? No, okay.
Still here. We're still with you.
Which were similar to the brain activity of sleeping humans. This is what I was looking for a sleeping human being. So we can experiment on them. But one feature of the zebrafish that has caught the attention of the team that's doing the research is its ability to use a form of hibernation called torpor. That's Torpor, torpor. And what they're looking to do is see if they can recreate this in astronauts on long journeys. What they did is they had two lots of zebrafish. Excuse me. And what they did is they exposed one lot to high radiation and a lot of stressful situations to see how they coped. And this, then the other lot, they actually put into hibernation and they did exactly the same. And what they found is that if they could change the metabolic rate, it would stop them requiring food, oxygen, and water, and it would possibly protect their muscles from wasting during these effects. Now, what they did is they put them, like I said, they had the two lots. They exposed one lot to all this stress and oxygen thing, and they found it caused signatures of oxidative stress, which is basically destruction of the muscle tissue and things like that. Stress hormone signaling and the halting of the cell cycle within the zebrafish. The ones they put in torpor, they actually found that they exposed them to the same dose of radiation and analyzed them to assess the protective effects during the induced state of physical and mental inactivity. The results showed that torpor lowered the metabolic rate within the zebrafish and created a radioprotective effect, protecting against the harmful effects of radiation, such as muscle and bone wastage, advanced aging, and vascular problems. The results of induced torpor, the zebrafish showed that a reduction of the metabolism and the oxygen concentration in cells promotes less oxidative stress and greater resistance to radiation. So basically, they've been using these little zebrafish, and they're beautiful little things, to actually help in advance the man's flight into space. So now all they've got to do, Simon's got a cornetto, and now now what they've got to do is find how they can induce torpor into humans, and so in effect reduce the effects of long distance space flight. So we may have the little zebrafish to thank for going to Mars at a later date. So that's that one.
Amazing.
Zebrafish. So discuss.
Is that just a byproduct of torpor, or do they think that there was some reason why they needed to get greater radiation resistance as a fish?
I honestly don't know. This has been ongoing for several years now, and because I did see this years ago when it first came about zebrafish, and of course with the 70% of their genetic makeup being the same as ours.
Mm.
But it's now it's proven that when they're in this state of sort of like semi-hibernation, they are their metabolism slows down, and it does reduce the effects of radiation poisoning and stuff like that. Or
It protects all kind of bodily systems.
Exactly, because you're using less oxygen and all that. And of course, if you could do this, I mean, it's like all the films you see. Everybody's in hibernation. They're in, they're in suspended animation and that, and they're asleep. So it's basically science becoming true in a way.
Can we send teenagers up? Because I know loads that just sleep in for hours on end and never actually seem to do anything.
Now they'll stay forever young, because it did say it helps prevent aging. So like if it reversed aging, I'll be the first up there. But yeah, there's a few teenagers. Well, yeah, but but it's not fair. I can't know. I want to play on my iPad. Anyway, yeah. So they wouldn't like to be in that amount of sleep that time. They'll lose all their points in that on their gaming machines and all that. So yeah. So that's zebrafish, and how they are advancing our a knowledge of how to protect ourselves from radiation in space. So yeah.
Daz, when you mentioned that the body changes and the fluid position changes and everything, just this afternoon, I was able to attend a talk by Roberta Bondar. And she was talking about how when she went up in the shuttle, she no longer was able to use her glasses because the change in fluid in her eyeball actually extends it and counteracts her little bit of nearsightedness that she had.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. That is, but again, as I said, it just proves that with the, as you said, the redistribution of fluids, especially to the head part.
Well, on the other side, Chris Hadfield published videos about the fact that he had trouble seeing for the longest time when he went up and had headaches and difficulty, and they had to do the whole ultrasound with the ball of water on his eyeball.
Yeah. Okay, then that's fantastic. Well, maybe, hopefully, if this all comes to fruition and we can put people to sleep in torpor, as it's called, then we should be able to send people anywhere. So, yeah, excellent. Right.
Fascinating. So, fluffy boulders.
Fluffy boulders.
Fluffy boulders.
Right. If you remember, Hayabusa 2, the Japanese probe, went to Ryugu and brought back some samples from the asteroid. Now, they found that they're having trouble actually analyzing this material. It didn't bring that much back, actually. It's not like Osiris Rex, which is coming back with a whole wheelbarrow full, apparently. What they found is that the rock is far too porous. So while they're trying to analyze it, it's just falling apart on them. And they were saying that it could be the actual rocks are 30% to 50% porous. While Hayabusa was actually there, they did use some heat detecting equipment, and they did find that towards the middle there were two sources of heat. And when they used radar and X-rays to have a look at it, they actually found that these two places, there are boulders. And of course, for that to actually heat, if you've got boulders that are very porous and very light, they heat up, and they will retain their heat for a while. And they're saying that basically these boulders can be in the middle of Ryugu, could be 72% to 91% porous. So there's virtually hardly any rock in them at all. And they seem to think that these could be basically pre-solar system material. And this is what the planetesimals are made up of. When, of course, when Osiris Rex did its sample collection, or its tag, as they called it, we actually saw it was the collector was coming down, and on the periphery there was some very large rocks. But as soon as it hit these rocks, they just totally disintegrated. And when the tag actually happened, where it was supposed to stay on the surface, it blew nitrogen into the actual asteroid, and all the sample came back up and was collected in a collection box. but it actually penetrated something like, I think it's something like 2 feet or something like that into the actual asteroid itself, because it was so porous and it's so loose. Basically, it's a pile of rubble. It's you know, it's scree. It's not actually solid, which is what they were expecting. And of course, again, when they use radar on Bennu, they found it was very sort of like of a porous material. So they are thinking these things are made up of basically pre-solar system materials, and basically they've just collected together to form these massive balls of scree, which we call asteroids. It'd be interesting to see what actually happened if one of them entered the atmosphere, whether or not it could survive, or whether it would cause the damage that we expect one of these things, because these are big items, and we've always concerned that if one of these entered the atmosphere, then we could be in some big trouble. But also they are sending they've been talking about sending a probe to the asteroid Psyche. Now, it was thought to be the core of a planet that had been basically pulverized or been involved in some massive collision, and all the rock and the outer crust had been knocked away, and you had a center core. Now, of course, we all know the cores are going to be heavy in metals, have lots of heavy metals in them, including gold and things like that. And they thought that this Psyche could be worth 10,000 quadrillion dollars, US dollars. And they were thinking about mining it. But they've done further observations of it and all that. And following on from the fluffy boulders, or the fluffy asteroids as they are, basically these piles of scree, they got a funny feeling that Psyche is not what they thought it was originally. And again, they think it could be just a pile of more of scree. It's not as compact as they thought it was going to be. So let's have a look. In the study, they said they found that Psyche is 82.5% metal, 7% low iron proxene, rock forming minerals, and 10% carbonaceous chondrite, which again is the same stuff that made the first parts of the solar system. But now like I said, they are thinking about that it's now actually a porous, made of the same porous materials as Hayabusa, not Hayabusa, Regu, and the other one, whatever it was called. So yeah, it seems that all these big rocks that we're looking at, and possibly even some of the rocks in the asteroid belt and things like that, are just basically piles of scree, and it's very, very porous rocks. So they are thought to be very, very ancient, and they could be would be interesting to examine, because they will tell us about the early formation of the planets, how they started, and all the rest of the stuff we see in the solar system. So that's what fluffy rocks are. That's how they describe it. They are very, very porous, and they just fall apart as soon as you touch them. So that's that one.
Treat them gently then. Okay,
very, very gently.
So we're ready to go for a track. I think Peter's got his record player all wired up there and spinning. You ready to drop that needle on top of it?
I'm going to drop that needle on the disc, man.
Bit of Bad Moon Rising for our moon lovers.
Bit of Bad Moon Rising. We have a back-to-back track. We're having Bad Moon Rising, the John Fogerty version, which was released later after Creedence Clearwater Revival, hard to say. Mm-hmm. And followed by the Liverpool band who've played Solosphere many times, Civilian Zen with Neon Sun. So here we go, folks. John Fogerty, Bad Moon Rising.
Because it has...
And there we have Civilian Zen, Neon Sun. Civilian Zen, a band from Liverpool. Here we're here on Reach Out and Touch Space. I just had to remember where I was for a moment then, because during those two tracks, I was doing a piece to BBC Radio on the other mic. So I'm doing a bit of multitasking here at the moment. I'm on the BBC and Astro Radio at the same time. But that's what we do here at Astro Radio. We can multitask. We can do it all. So we're going to go back over to the panel. And what I'm going to talk about and ask the panel to describe is a question that has come in from one of our listeners. Our listener is Stefan in the Russian Federation. And what he said is, you mentioned solstice at the beginning of the show. He said, can you explain to the listeners, he said, what a solstice is? Many listeners may not know what a solstice is.
Yeah, I think Kareem was going to bring this one up as well.
Sure. So the Earth revolves around the sun, and when it's revolving around the sun, it's rotating on its own axis, but the axis is tilted to the sun. So it's tilted by about 23.5 degrees. And that means that on one side of our orbit, the northern hemisphere is facing towards the sun, and on the other side of the orbit is the southern hemisphere that's facing towards the sun. So what you see in the daytime sky actually is the sun rising in the east and setting in the west only actually happens twice a year at the equinoxes. When you're reaching from the equinox towards your summer solstice, the rising and setting points of the sun actually move northward from east and west. And when you're reaching towards your winter solstice, they move southwards, so that you get less sunlight and the days are shorter when you're reaching towards winter solstice, more sunlight and longer days when you're reaching towards summer solstice. So very close to the North Pole, there's a lot of areas where close to the summer solstice, the sun never sets. It's up the entire day all the time. And the same thing happens again at the South Pole for our winter solstice, which is their summer solstice. So the term solstice is those extremes when you have the absolute longest day in the summer side and the absolute shortest day in the winter side. But our summer solstice is referred to as winter solstice in Australia, Chile, etc. I hope that helped.
Yeah, that helps. I mean, that explains it absolutely perfectly, to be honest.
We drew two dirty great big lines around the Earth of latitude, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. For the summer solstice, the Tropic of Cancer is the sun will be directly overhead on this day. All other days of the year, it'll actually be lower than overhead. But on this day of the year, it'll be above the Tropic of Cancer directly.
And that's actually what Eratosthenes used for his original measurement for the circumference of the Earth. When we try to redo it these days, we use the equinox, because then you're exactly at your local noon at whatever your latitude is.
It's interesting because Phil's just emailed in. He works at the Antarctic Research Station the Antarctic Research Station in Antarctica. Where else is he going to be? But he works there, but he's not there at the moment, obviously, because the people aren't there because of COVID and one thing and another. They can't go out. But he said it's very, very weird to be down there in their summer solstice, through their cycle where the sun is in the sky all the time. He said your whole body clock just goes to pieces. He said it's the most strange experience. And he said, and he can't explain how it feels to be sitting up at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, the sun's high in the sky. He said it's the most strange feeling to have. But,
well, what Daz was saying about, exploring space, that's one of the things that we're going to have to figure out how to get used to, is not having that normal cycle. When astronauts go up to the ISS and, every 90 minutes they're experiencing another sunrise, it's absolutely bizarre.
It is.
So I think on the ISS they use GMT to synchronize with the day. On the old Russian space station, the Mir, Salyut and that, they actually used Moscow time. So when you get a cross section of different nationalities on board, it's the body clock. They've got to basically customize themselves to the time zone before they actually get up there. Which is we talked about body clocks before on this program. It's there's more to it than just jet lag. There really is. But I was just looking at the times of the amount of sunlight that we have today in the UK. In London, 16.5 hours of sunlight from sunrise to sunset, the longest day. In Scotland, up in Edinburgh, 17.5 hours. Go further north to the Shetlands, and it becomes 19 hours of sunlight. Of course, as you go towards, further towards the North Pole, you're going to have daylight almost months of daylight. Yeah, down on the South Pole in Antarctica, it's nighttime, and they get the dark skies. Hopefully they get clear dark skies.
Yeah. What's going to be interesting, it's just crossed my mind then as I was sitting here listening, is say, for instance, we go to Mars and we set up a base on Mars. will they construct a new version of the times, hours, minutes? Will they
Mars time?
Mars time, because obviously the planet's rotation is slightly different. So will they use a different time scale?
Well, they use Martian sols, which is what Simon was mentioning.
Yeah.
Which is not a great deal different from an Earth day, is it? Not a huge amount.
Not a huge difference.
But it's an interesting thought. Going to different places, will they have a different method of measuring time?
It's also nice to
Not
mention.
bad with Mars. It's only half an hour difference, but Jupiter would be interesting.
Well, we'd never be as old
where
as
you are.
then, would we?
Yeah.
We'd
You'd
never
very
be as
old if
old
you
as
stood on Jupiter.
You'd be way older than me if you were stood on Jupiter. Way older.
Still be GMT on Mars, General Mars time.
Steve. But it's a good one. I like it, Steve. I like it.
Interesting.
Nice one. You've just
I'm glad someone
time.
did.
One of the nice things about Mars is that it does have a tilt similar to ours. So you experience seasons similar to what we get here on Earth.
Yeah. It's very interesting, that we've discussed this before, what happens when we colonize different worlds. And, some of the things we've discussed are laws. We've discovered discussed these in the past. Whose laws do you abide to when you're on another world? Do they construct new laws? Who enforces them? And, and like I said, just thought time construct as well. I'm sure they think about these things. We'll bring Julian in on that. What do you think, Julian?
I think you should abide by my laws. So that's straightforward.
What's that? Cake time.
Cake time. Yeah, that's the one.
Two currants past the bun.
That's why we've got. That's why we have the radio jingle. This is Astro Radio. I'm Dr. Julian Onions, and I'm listening to Astro Radio whilst eating cake. Yes, it's a common jingle that goes out at least 10 times a day, if not more.
Well,
and the sales of cake has gone up all around the world.
Yes.
Synchronizes with my cake.
Yeah, synchronized by cake time.
And the weight of astrophysicists has ballooned.
Yeah. So we've got that. So any other space news? Anything people should be going out and looking for in the night sky? I know we've got very short nights now, but what about these noctilucent clouds? We've had some big alerts, have we not?
Excellent alert came in today from spaceweather.com. Go to the website, have a quick look at that. Some beautiful photographs. Now, normally we think of these as northern atmospheric events in the Arctic, and this time around they're actually getting observed down in France. There's a beautiful image with the Eiffel Tower and noctilucent clouds in the background. That's 48 degrees northern latitude. They're also being seen from Spain as well. So Andy is our resident panelist. He's not feeling too good today, so he's having a little rest. But he was asking me the other day, is it possible to see them down in Spain? Well, yeah, apparently you can. I think it's a rarity, but maybe this is becoming the way now. It's becoming maybe an annual.
I was amazed. I saw that report. I was like, yeah.
Well, I mean, since the 70s, since I've looked for these, it's always been in the northern sky and just above the horizon. And now, very rare we saw them lower down in the UK, but now they're getting down to France, Madrid, Valencia. Yeah, it's worth looking out. And who knows, is it a sign of bad times with the
evil omen? Will witches be about?
Well, you never know.
It could be,
yeah.
Not being good for the Hubble.
Well, looking out, I mean, for the studio tonight, I've actually got the blinds open today for the first time in the studio for about a year, so I can actually see outside. Basically, of course, the blinds were stuck shut. I've actually fixed them, and we can see outside. And looking outside, we were saying you've got so many hours of sunshine. Well, we've had none today in Whittington. No hours of sunshine at all. And actually, at the moment, and it's probably the same with you, Des, because you're just down the road. Yeah. It's chucking it with rain.
It's chucking it down, yeah.
So I think it's about to start raining here.
Yeah.
Just for enjoyment, at the Herschel Museum of Astronomy today, we had a solar observing event.
Oh, excellent.
And we didn't get to see the solar bit at all throughout the entire day. We had the solar scopes out, but not a dicky bird.
What a shame.
Yeah.
But we did have a great solar day, didn't we? Sunday was International Sun Day, and Peter was involved the online virtual world, doing some amazing lectures, and I think they're still available, aren't they, Pete?
All except mine. And the reason for that isn't that I didn't want them to rebroadcast it and save it. The reason is because I have a license to broadcast, but Facebook and YouTube won't rebroadcast it because they want me to pay them another £1,000 to buy a license to rebroadcast it after the event as a repeat. So that talk's not available for you to listen to. But you know, the only way to get around that is to go and see it live, is it not? At the Herschel Museum in Bath. Herschel to Hawkwind at the Herschel Museum in Bath. Where better?
I'll be very interesting.
We'll have the amps that go up to 11. We'll be ready.
Get the amps up, turn up. I'll bring the bass.
Peter, can we just add about the noctilucent clouds? As Rachel quite rightly points out to us, they're not actual clouds as in rain clouds. Basically, what are they, Rachel? How would you describe them?
Oh, that's what I was sort of asking. I've seen a lot of debate online, really. So a lot of people, some people are saying obviously it's particles shining off certain things, but do they warrant the description of cloud? Are they a cloud because it's a group of particles? You know, what warrants it to be a cloud? Are they clouds or are they not? They're not precipitating clouds.
They're very fine particles of dust with ice.
80 kilometers high altitude, and perhaps it's cosmic. Well, it's from space. It's meteoric dust, comet dust.
Obviously, we use the word clouds of dust, don't we? We say there are clouds of ice, clouds of dust. So, are we using cloud in that sort of sense? Because I know a lot of people online are going, they're not clouds, but they're not clouds as we know them, as in
I think it's just a generic term. Phenomenon.
Just a generic term. Yeah.
Okay, I think that covers it. Look out for noctilucent clouds if you're south of Europe there.
I want to thank Dave for coming in onto Astro Radio tonight. And like Dave, you're welcome to come into the panel anytime. Just pop in. You've got the link. You've got the password.
Thank you so much.
You know, when we're on, you can join. I want to thank the panel again for their hard work. And I also want to thank the panel, especially as you clubbed together for my birthday, and I got the lens, a Sigma 150 to 600 mil lens for my camera, and I didn't think it was going to be that big or that heavy, but it's great. It's absolutely
Peter, was there any change left over?
No.
Okay.
I had to put a little bit towards it, but there you go. So thank you very much, panel, and we're going to leave tonight, as we were mentioning, with